Hi, friends, and welcome to Another Million Miles. I'm Danielle Kiesling, and this podcast isn't about the miles that we travel across the world. It's really about the journey that we take through life. The experiences that shape us, the conversations that challenge us, the moments that change us, and the people who inspire us to become the very best versions of ourselves. Every episode is an opportunity to discover new perspectives that help us grow with greater purpose, resilience, health, and intention. And because every lesson we learn, every challenge we overcome, and every step that we choose to take is another million miles. So I'm so glad you're here. Today's guest is someone whose life reminds us that creativity isn't just about making beautiful things. It's about healing, resilience, and finding purpose through life's greatest challenges. Award-winning multidisciplinary artist Brett Ashby has spent more than 2 decades transforming movement into art. Known around the world for his extraordinary practice of painting while riding a skateboard, Brett creates work that captures the beauty of being fully present. As a cancer survivor, his story goes far beyond art. It's about resilience, hope, and discovering that sometimes our greatest adversities become our greatest purpose. I'm super honored to welcome Brett, and let's kick it off on Another Million Miles. Thank you for joining.
Thanks for having me, Danielle.
Absolutely. So you're tuning in all the way from Melbourne, Australia. 6 a.m. there. Thank you for taking this time and getting up early. So tell me a little bit about your background and how did you take your what you love to do, turn it what you do now, and how did that whole thing transpire? Because we talked a little bit before the podcast about this was kind of a spiritual journey for you as well. So just give me your little background and like how this kind of came about.
Sure. Well, hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. And I started off in taking photography. I used to always love to document my realities, what I was witnessing as a country boy and moving to London when I was studying in university. What I started doing was taking photos, and I wanted to make artworks that were printed, but they felt like they were moving as if they were animating, because nothing in nature is still, and everything we witness, we can't process these energies and frequencies. So I used to do that through layering photographs, and this was called mixed media. And I made my first self-portrait when I was living in London for my major project around 2000 in London for my university. And that was chaos and complexity in one's face from being an Australian boy moving to London. And this soon expanded to doing Princess Diana's portrait and doing Barack Obama in later years around 2009 during the Hope Obama campaign. So after that, I soon made my mark in the Art Basel Festival and in Miami, and soon touring the world.
Wow, that is amazing. Those are big projects and big celebrities. So you were in photography, and tell me about the skateboarding piece, because I mean, that's like your staple of like how you are moving through this creation. I think I've never seen anything like this. So what got you in that creative space and, set you apart from a lot of what people are doing?
Sure. So I first returned back from London around 2012, and I was involved in a project in Chapel Street in Prahran in Australia, in Melbourne. John Olsen he's a painter, and he was building a new apartment tower there and hotel in his restaurant, and he's looking for an artwork. He commissioned me to do an artwork. So on my return from London, I said, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to actually return to the skateboard and put my easel on the middle of a vert ramp in this iconic skate park just next to where he was doing his development. And I called my childhood friend, and we returned to skateboarding after 11 years. I hadn't skateboarded, and due to a major accident when I was a child. So I put all my fears on the side and combated thoughts and dissolved my thinking and put the easel there already, got my paints and just dropped in, skated around the easel and painted the commissioned artwork there. And it was almost like John had witnessed me where I was in my mid-career, and then he almost gave me the yes. He said, well, if you're going to do this commission, you're absolutely going to have to do that, Brett. So I dropped in. I was awarded a prize in his arts fair, and that became the major piece of artwork, which then I was, it was like that red ticket to go for it. And I started going to sculpture fairs and public art events. And, I went off to be painting in front of 15,000 people across 2 weeks, at Bondi Beach in Sydney, painting a panel van with oil paint while skateboarding. So I was painting a vehicle. And yeah, this was to tour as a movable sculpture. And then, we're looking at 5 years ahead from that, sort of those events. I didn't know, Danielle, what I was doing, but I hosted a lot of student workshops and public facilitation. And across those events, it was the students that would talk back to me. And I said, well, what to the youth, what am I doing? And they said, well, you're just painting the movement of a skateboard. And I thought, well, isn't that really interesting? They see it as the tool is the skateboard. The practitioner, the painter, he's just documenting where he's going on a skateboard. And so then that started informing my work. And it was from the voice of the youth and the local ownership that were telling me what I was doing with my art, which it kept making it evolve. And then we're moving forward a little bit further. And then I started touring, taking photographs with famous singers from bands. And I was just documenting, in their life in the green room. But I soon understood that when they go out on stage with their microphone, they sing in front of 100,000 people in a stadium. I was thinking, you know what, like, how would I be able to paint this person's portrait without raising my vibration? And I thought, well, the skateboarding's perfect for this. So then I asked one singer, they had toured with Nirvana, and I said to him, you got to sit for this artwork. I'm going to paint your portrait, so you need to sit next to the half pipe. So we went to a big vert ramp half pipe in the public area, and I paid the council so I could paint on there. And I dropped in and I skated, and when we finished, his face was on a canvas. And I thought, wow, that's like being at a concert. That's like a gig. And as soon as that singer hugged into that portrait, gave consent to sit, then I started painting everyone.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Do you have videos out there of you doing this? I'm sure everywhere, right?
Yeah, for sure. I'll be sharing them with you.
I love this. I love this story. I have a background in creative space as a hairstylist. And, I think art is so fascinating. I just like, what inspires you? Like, really, when you kind of get on your skateboard and you do this, like, what is it that is like, what do you go, like, what are those emotions that you're processing? What is it more about the performance? Is it more about the finished product? Is it a flow? Like, what kind of, like, how does it start for you?
Well, it is called flow state. I also call it the experience and being alive. So when I first started it, it was always like this pendulum, and there's a sound of the wheels rolling on the timber, and then ding hits the steel coping. Ding hits the steel coping, but you hear the wheels on the wood. So it used to be like, now this is something already. So this becomes like a meditation. If I just keep going nonstop, it's like those balls that ding together, or it's like a metronome in the music studio. So that's like a sound bath. So if you've done their singing bowls,
Yeah. Yep.
If you've done your yoga with those glass bowls, the singing bowls, the chimes. So I was thinking, hang on a minute, like, this is almost holistic. This is some kind of singing bowl ritual. So it started off like that. Then I was dissolving my thinking, because I was in a flow state doing that, the wheels and the movement. And so that motion is occurring. And then I have my back to the audience. So there's a 500 seated ticketed theatre show looking at me, sharing their energy. And then I stare at my subject who's sitting on the left of the canvas. And I'm just I'm just having no thought and I'm just looking straight at you, Danielle, for 1 hour non-stop, going as hard as I can on a skateboard, and then just getting the paint off my paint bench and palette, and I'm just throwing energy all over the canvas, and I'm painting your portrait. And whilst this is happening, there's a live musician playing shamanic. Well, the first one I did, it was a Gregorian chant vocalist chanting, and a hang drummer. All your holistic friends will love this. They're with their hang drum, and
Yeah.
so they're using the energy in the space too. And this is creating people in the audience to almost go into a really relaxive state of
Yeah.
meditation.
Yeah.
So absolutely flow state, no thoughts, and you're thinking about those professional skateboarders who do stuff that their muscle memory holds them to return to that position. Like, the tricks are not done from their mind. There is no fear. And when
Uh-huh.
they land those skateboard tricks, that's because there's no fear and there's no thought, and that's flow
Okay.
state.
Okay. That's so cool. So like you really do have to get into, because like does that how this is a performance, obviously. So you're creating art, but you're also performing. And is that ever how do you prepare for that mentally? Because that's gotta be that's gotta feel like a lot of pressure.
Well, so the painting aspect's always been fascinating because you're just alone. So a visual artist spends their whole life in a studio on their own. Do they paint it, or does they get painted through? And in terms of me taking this to the stage, it was only because I was in company with famous rock stars that, as vocalists, they were showing me it's just you, and all you need to do, Danielle, is show up. So what I started doing, and with the performance, and that made me think about performance. It made me think about acting. It made me think about, people's thinking and thoughts and how they perceive you and perception. But what's
Uh-huh.
occurring is I started to notice that when I was in those moments, if I wasn't having thoughts about this, I allow it to paint itself. And also having full trust in the fact that whatever you do there, everybody is open to their own opinion, perception of what you're doing. So it was a moment where there is nothing. And also the feeling that I can't even see the audience. So made me feel like it was just me.
Okay.
A very oneness type events. Yeah.
That's so cool. And when you're in these situations, how long does like one piece of art take you? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah. So it's absolutely a 1 hour event. That's it.
Okay.
Blank canvas. But so, yeah, explaining it to everyone, just like you're coming to see someone speak on stage, the
Yeah.
subject will come, sit on stage, and the musicians will come, opening a shamanic event, and then I'll drop in on the skateboard, and there'll be the pendulum rolling until I'm done, and then the board will just roll off, and I'll walk off, and it's done. And
So
people are
cool.
like, "How do you know this is done?" I said, "I'm just showing up, and I have full trust. It's steadfast focus on my subject until the end."
What a cool life. What a cool like job. Like what a like that is
Yeah.
like the ultimate form of creativeness, but like also with like you said, like you're kind of in your own zen and you're doing something you absolutely love doing. So I want to talk about I want to talk about that because I know that you battled with cancer. What how does that tie into who you have become and what you've chose to do? Because I actually I was so curious as you were speaking about this. I pulled up the video on your website and I'm like, whoa, it's a lot more it's really cool. And so I'm like to wake up every single day and do something that you're super passionate about and you love doing. And I'm sure you had battles with, mindset and cancer and all of that. How did that feed into it? Maybe take you down from this or discourage you from it? Or how did it feed into like making this bigger, better? And, you're obviously internationally known for this. It's so cool.
Thanks, Danielle. Yeah, so, well, you're witnessing a survivor now. You're watching art created after. So I grew up taking photography. I worked in television as a cameraman. I used to shoot everyone through the lens. And now I'm in front of the lens. I treated people equal. I never knew who was more famous than the next or who was, everybody to me was the same. I told you where to stand. I made you look beautiful and I put the sun behind you. And that soon, I did all types of production to fund my art. And I was making digital art and mixed media, which I exhibited in the biggest shows in the world. I had a lot of stresses placed upon me. I had, the thoughts, the stresses of the thoughts. I had the toxins of the materials. I painted everything in oil paint. I used resin. I used all the chemicals we grew up to think were safe. And
Okay.
I exhibited in the biggest events and I received the most income you could have as an artist. And then you have everything and you're at the top of it all. And then you finish your last series of work, you put all the screws in, you put all the wires in, you sign all the canvases, you wrap them, and then 2 days later you go back to your local general practitioner doctor and he says, yeah, you're in trouble. You've got 1 week to live.
Holy sh!
So that was printed out on the piece of paper and I had to read that and I had to realize that no matter how much income, how much connection, how much where you're going, there was no more time. And that's what made me, want one more day to breathe and wanted to make change.
And how long ago was this, Brett?
So 2016, I went through cancer treatment and it was a shock. And, in terms of men coming into their 30s at having no education or no knowledge of cancer, it was widespread and terminal. So I was very lucky because I had come back from living in America and I had bought a house on the waterfront, seaside town. And I had been painting these really heavy artworks. I thought this is the dark series that I've ever sort of been doing. And I feel like I was eating plant-based. I was swimming and running and painting these heavy artworks. And of course, you don't know what you're doing, but it feels right. So I was feeling like this was getting better. And then that's when I completed that body of work. And then I met the doctor and he said, you've almost pushed this to the surface. If you follow this treatment plan, I've seen guys at your age, you'll get through this.
That's wild though. Like your mindset and resilience is insane.
Yeah, I was saying, I moved my entire life to the ocean and I just ran on the sand and swam all day running and swimming and eating plant-based and just sleeping. And I thought, I would have had a partner at the time that I said, shit, I reckon I've got cancer or something. And I identified it myself, like I did know, but nobody could help me and nobody medical knew. So I just had to drop my trousers and be like, something going on here, mate? You know what I mean? Like, let's talk about this. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so did you have any symptoms or anything? Or this just like you just went in for a routine physical and you were just like, boom?
Yeah, no one. No, I thought like something's going on here heavy. Like I got to make sure someone's checking me out. But no. And I'd seen doctors earlier and they said, oh, come on, mate, like come back when you're 60. And I was like, well, no, I think you need to check some stuff. But no, they kept pushing me back and then until it was too late. And that's what the message for people is don't listen to people pushing you back, because if you feel like there's something going on and if you've moved your whole life to the nature, you probably got external reflections coming back like, mate, maybe there's something going on inside. Your internal nature's unwell, so you're surrounding yourself with external nature. And that I only knew that afterwards, but I'm very lucky that I followed my intuition and I did all those steps because it was
Yeah.
healing me.
Yeah. Yeah. That is just like, wow. What would you
So,
get? Like, yeah, go ahead.
so even like just stepping from that moment, you go through the cancer treatment process. And then it was about 5 years in Danielle before I could do sit-ups or push-ups after the treatment. So I started, I've done the yoga. I know you do yoga, your community, but I'm doing the yoga to feel my body again. I'm sleeping on the timber floorboards to lean into the floorboard to feel my arms again. Like, people, will you do it? I'll say, I'm not Japanese, but I mean, I'm like laying on the floorboard to feel again
Yeah.
and stuff like
Yeah.
doing stuff like this. But that was getting me closer to then hit the skate park again.
Yeah.
So 2016 to 2020, then I'm doing some of the biggest shows anyone's ever seen. But I had to rebuild my body. I started renovating my house. I started building. I started pushing stuff out into hard rubbish. I just cleansed my entire reality, rebuild my muscles, because I was coming out of a not good place.
So amazing, Brett. Honestly, I mean, what I'm hearing is that like you like did nothing but focus and work, and you had the dream life in people's perception of what we are here on this earth to do, and basically finding yourself that you were basically toxic and all
Yeah.
of that, like money can't buy health. And
Yeah, like I did everything I was taught to do, and
yeah.
what I was led to believe was the idealist career in the most unstable landscape ever. And I made it, and then maybe I didn't make it. So
Mhm.
it's been the best thing that ever happened to me. And yeah, I'm just so happy that I got another go at it. As soon as I
That's
woke up from all the treatment I had, because I was making television when I was younger, like 18 onwards. And it's very funny when you meet cameramen and you meet actresses and you meet journalists and everything, because some of us, we don't watch TV, but we make it. And then I realized when I woke up there, the television monitors in the hospital, they were crystal clear. And I thought, wow, I can see again.
It's so interesting to me. So because you've had this very like colorful background. I mean, going
The
everywhere
art's
from,
so colourful as well.
I
Like, it's
mean,
rapid colour, vivid. And once, as a survivor, the works, I started only using the chakra palette of colour palette. Again, didn't know why, had no decision making. I don't make decisions. I just have that trust. And I'm like, this is doing something. It's either doing something for me to look at and witness that chakra energy, or it's just how it's meant to be. But like even my collage of Barack Obama, it's so high color. So I've always loved the vibrancy of frequency, the vibration of color, and also that could have been running through my blood. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm not
yeah,
sure I will have been living through these anxieties and these stresses and this vibrancy, this, absolutely wild blood flow or something.
yeah. No, it's so interesting. I mean, it sounds like you've been a little bit always like spiritual, or like you kind of have this, like, a deep innate intuition to like know what your body needs. But like, what did it feel like to just, because you mentioned you just like, this was a pivot. You're glad that it happened because it completely changed your life. But like, when did you really realize that? Because I think that a lot of people go through life and they're like, I know I need balance, or I know I need to be better, or I know I need to take care of my body. and then like something like this happens and it sets them back. But like, when did you really realize like, I've got to make a change? And was it the cancer? Was it like after you got better from the cancer? Because I just think that like a lot of people get set back with like, if they're alcohol, they're and they get into a DUI, that sets them back. Or if they have a problem and something happens from it, that sets them back. And then they finally have a trigger that like changes their life. What would you say was like, it's because again, most people aren't in tune. You're very in tune. It seems like you always have been.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I always seen things ahead of before they happen. And when I'm painting these subjects, many people are saying like, Brett, you can see the aura of this human. So
Okay.
maybe I'm still exploring that. But in
Okay.
terms of,
That makes sense.
I
I can see
think,
that. Okay.
yeah. And what, to answer the question is like, I find there's a beautiful thing and it's maybe called synchronicity, but it's almost like you need to almost go out into the world and someone else will reflect back to you and someone would say something like, geez, hey, like, do you know, like in after 4 years, most people return to their previous habit and then they'll go off in their ways with their cup of coffee or something. And I'll go off and think, well, you know what, like maybe were they telling me something there? So I'm trying to explain, like, I find just partaking in being present, a complete random human will be like a messenger and they'll say something, they'll remind me to not go back to a habit that I may have had. And then I'll listen and not do that. I'll make
Yeah.
change. So
Yeah.
after I was cancer free, some of these magical moments started to happen. And I think it maybe was because I had full clarity. I had no brain fog. I was full of water or salt water, or I was fully washed out. And I was like, wow, like I'm born again. And so I look for these and I celebrate them myself privately and say, like, how did that happen? Like I've been thinking about this. I've almost manifested this human to sit there. Has spent a moment with this person and it's telling me not to do something again. So all of that is happening all the time. And another big thing was I did have all the toxins cleared out of me. And then I had a community around me who would put the beer back in your hand or would say, come to this event or be here. And then I started to think, well, you know what? I don't need to do any of that. And so then, just got through that cell phone out and started walking the other way.
Yeah. So basically surrounding yourself with
Just
the energy
put
that.
it, whatever's not worked, who was there when you're in your robe with all your jewelry and everything bare in hospital, who was there? No one.
Yeah.
So when you come out, who's there? Well, only who's sending you SMS then. So I want people to think, well, when stuff's fun and when people are getting paid, you might have this huge art community. As soon as you stop funding others and put self-harming in a way, there's no one left. So these were the type of moments. And also I had
Okay.
so I had my son I had to make a decision if I wanted to have a child or not before surgery. So I had my son. So
Okay.
that changed my life as well. To see him at a certain age, you're thinking, I'm going to make change for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. How old is your son now?
10.
10. Cool. Into art?
Absolutely.
That's awesome. That's so cool. That's so cool. So that's something that you can share with your son then as well.
Yeah, for sure. And the day I survived, the day he was born. So it's a real full on journey.
That's wild. I love this. I love that you're so like you're just living life. Like, I love that you spoke a little bit about manifestation. It's something that I talk about a lot. Do you still practice that? Is it still something that comes across in your world pretty much on a regular basis?
I'm sure all of these paintings are done through envisioning them either in dream state, deep meditative state. Well, somebody asked me recently, and I said, well, you know what? I see them in black and white, but I hear the whispers telling me the colors, and I'm interested in that. Someone asked me that. And so these artworks are in full color, high color frequency, but I do see them in my mind, black and white, and I have to notate them down. I don't speak them to the universe. I notate them down in my abstract way, and then I have to realize them on canvas before the vision fades. And that's what many famous artists have informed me to this date, and that's how we're doing the manifestation.
That's super cool. So let me ask you, because it just triggered something for me. Like, you came from like a background in like TV and like more logical, I would say, scenario. Like photography, it's artistic, but it's also settings. It's very scientific. It's very like, got to know light, and you have to know like kind of,
For
it's
sure.
mathematical, I would say. Now you went into like this completely different world of like flow and creativity and tapping into your intuition, I would say, and manifestation. And like, now you're telling me about like the black and white thing is fascinating, because when you mentioned that you see like auras and you paint with the chakra colors, and that is so interesting to me, just as a perspective of what you do. And I think as an artist, because I've actually never really gotten to talk to a true like creative artist that expresses in paint or any type of art, like museum art. If somebody wanted to like, go down this journey or like look into art, or, they had an inclination or calling to get into art, what advice would you give them? Because I think that as a creative, I think that people hold themselves back, because you've mentioned a couple things that stood out with me. Like, one of them was you have an audience and you just get into your zone. A lot of people can't turn that off. A lot of people get into their head about like, well, people might not like it, or people might, like have an opinion about it, and that it holds them back. So what advice can you give to a creative that, as a somebody that made it, as somebody that's successful at it and has done everything that you've done?
Yeah, well, absolutely. And you're speaking very similar to many, many, many people that sound exactly the same as you, the same question. And that's what killed me, those questions. That what nearly killed me. And what it is you have books, you have education, you have knowledge, you get a degree from university, and you get thrusted into this matrix of deadlines, production, high pressure, multiple coffees a day, and you are producing creative content that isn't coming from you, and it isn't creative anymore. And as a painter or a photographer or a visual artist or a public artist, and I've been involved in all of them, and
Okay.
my success in mural painting and public art was to do what the local community wanted to voice and paint that. Remove Brett and use the skill set I have to mock up this large format artwork for them and paint what they want, and let them even paint it, and let their hands go in there and their hands on paint it. So in terms of the digital art, I was doing what I was taught. I was looking around me and thinking, what does the buyer want? What's the collector want? And I forgot to put Brett in there. And I did it for a long time, and I lost my feelings. My own self was not there. So I was harming myself thinking that the audience or the collector wanted something, and that's what we were taught to do, and that's what will end up harming you as the artist. So that was very much, don't do that. Do what I did later on. So 2,000 odd paintings later, I started to realize they want what you do, Brett. They don't want what you think they want. You do
Yeah.
what you want, and it will sell like hotcakes. But the next step with the skateboarding event was, you said you got anxieties or fears of what the audience might think. Well, I started, I did one, and maybe the first one, I thought, I got no idea what they're going to say about this. Like I've painted a fish, and this guy's a pro skater, but he's like, he hugged me and he's like, I'm a priest. And I was like, well, that's great. But then someone in the audience will come out and they'll say, I can see his face. And then someone will interview her and she goes, I'm blind. And I thought, well, this is a whole new level of she's legally blind, but she can see some forms. So then I'm saying to you is, when the best experience of all this has been is that everybody in that audience will come up and see what they want to see, and they have no idea what the artist saw. And
love
I
that.
absolutely loved it. I couldn't believe it when someone said, I'm legally blind and I can see my childhood friend, and they said, I love it, and here's the money, we're buying this. And I thought, this has blown my head off my body. Like, this is amazing. It's just
right.
art. Like,
that's cool. Art is
yeah.
interpretation. Right? And
But imagine if I painted what I thought they wanted.
yeah.
No,
Yeah. No.
I painted what I saw while skateboarding on a half pipe. Like, another man got up, I hugged him and I said, John, there's your portrait. I had painted a samurai. And then
wild.
all his boyfriends in the front row come up and they hug me and they go, if you knew John, and I'd never met this man before because he just come and I painted him live. They hugged me and they said, if you knew John, he will never let his armor down. And I couldn't believe the comments. It's definitely this spiritual exchange going on. And if I had have painted John normally, like a traditional Renaissance image, mate, none of them would have got up and said anything to me. But I painted him in vibrant colour with a samurai sword with his whole armour, and all you could see was his eyeballs. And I thought, what am I doing? No, I'm not. Who's going to tell me off? I'm not going to get in trouble. I just leave, get in the Range Rover and drive off. Amazing.
Yeah. I love it. I love that. That's a great ending, honestly, to this podcast. Is, just be true to yourself and like trust. I think trust yourself, right? Because I think that every time in my life I know that I've done that, I like am rewarded, and I'm like, damn, like, why do I like sit and think about so much stuff or like get into my own head and then like just go, I can do this and I don't care and it doesn't matter. And it's been a conversation for the last 2 years in my world or my circles, because I'm like, I could retire if I want. Like, I'm to that point in my life. And, like, I'm like, okay with that. But now more opportunity is coming in. I'm like, yeah. So all those conversations that I'm having. But again,
once you calm it down, you've calmed it down, and then everything comes in because you just got no negative thoughts, any patterns. All you watch. Now you're going to retire and podcast your heart out.
Literally, I say that. I'm like, oh, the last 2 years, everything's been plan B, which is Bali. I'm like, I'm going to retire in Bali. And, it's like the minute I started putting that out into the universe, it's like, oh, Danielle, here, run this team, do this shoot. I'm like, wait, what? I love what I do. So, I'm riding the wave right now, but it's really lovely to like talk to another creative on a different muse of creativity, because again, I've never really been able to sit down with a true artist, and your credibility and respect is insane. I would love to know, because I did see on your website that you have a course as well. So if someone's listening to this podcast and they want to either get to know you better or, like learn more about what you do, or, they even want to explore their own creativity as an artist, like how does that work and how do they get in touch with you?
Absolutely. And like I've done a lot of mentoring and facilitation with youth in all different areas of your art career. So you can reach out on www.brettashby.com, and you can send me a direct message on my Instagram at Brett Ashby Artist. And stay creative, and I look forward to seeing you all online. And come
It's
to the
amazing.
States soon.
Good.
Many
Well,
subjects to paint.
well, and keep me posted because I am like already thinking what a cool
Windwood walls on the half pipe. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the beauty industry, so this is like I put on shows and do productions all the time, and I'm like, this might be really cool. So that would be definitely something that I would want to talk to you further about.
Watch this space, team.
For sure. So again, that goes back to our point about putting it out in the world. And, I think one of the biggest things that I've learned through podcasting is that, when you're connecting with people all over the world and you're listening to stories from all over the world, it's really inspiring. And this conversation has been nonetheless. So thank you again, Brett. I really appreciate you coming on and talking about your background, your career, and again, just everything that you've done.
It was lovely. Thank you so much. Take care.
Absolutely. So, everyone that's listening, this has been a very inspiring conversation. As I've shared, Brett reminds us that creativity isn't just about making art, it's about making sense of our lives. And his story shows us that through movement, expression, vulnerability, and all of the things that he's been through, those can become very powerful tools for healing, resilience, and growth. So, Brett, thank you for sharing your heart and your journey. And if today's conversation inspired you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with somebody that needs to hear it. Thank you for spending part of your journey with us. Again, until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep growing. And remember that every lesson, every challenge, and every step forward is another million miles. I will see you all next time.